Is it tougher to be a man in 2026? Are men supposed to be tough, or are we supposed to be vulnerable? Are we supposed to be providers, or are we supposed to step aside and let women lead? Are we supposed to be confident and assertive, or humble and constantly checking our privilege? Are we supposed to chase ambition and success, or prioritize emotional availability and balance? Are we supposed to follow the old rules or write entirely new ones? Before anyone jumps to conclusions, this isn't about comparing struggles or playing the who has it worse game. This is about having an honest conversation about the unique challenges men face today. So, let's talk about it. The identity crisis. For most of human history, masculinity came with a fairly clear blueprint. Men were providers, protectors, breadwinners. Whether you liked those roles or not, they were clearly defined. In 2026, that blueprint is gone. And to be clear, change isn't inherently bad. Gender roles have evolved, and in many ways that's progress. But here's the problem. We tore down the old model without giving men a clear new one. Modern men are getting mixed messages from every direction. Be strong, but also be vulnerable. Be ambitious, but don't be aggressive. Be confident, but check your privilege. Provide financially, but also be emotionally available. All of those things can coexist, but navigating them takes nuance, guidance, and mentorship. And most young men aren't getting any of that. There's no roadmap anymore. When expectations are unclear or constantly shifting, it creates real psychological stress. Men are left wondering what's expected of them and whether they're failing before they even start. For generations, institutions helped guide boys into manhood. One example is the Boy Scouts of America. For over a century, it gave boys a structured environment to learn leadership, responsibility, self-reliance, and character under the guidance of older men. Today, that space has changed dramatically. While inclusion matters, the reality is that boys lost one of the few remaining environments designed specifically for male development. And participation has dropped sharply. This isn't about excluding anyone, it's about recognizing that boys, like girls, sometimes benefit from same-sex spaces where they can develop identity without social pressure or performance. We understand this when it comes to girls. All-girls schools, Girl Scouts, women-only mentorship programs, these are widely celebrated. But when similar spaces exist for boys, they're often labeled outdated or problematic. The result is fewer pathways for boys to grow into confident, capable men. And that gap shows up everywhere else. Education and achievement. Let's talk about something measurable: education. Women now earn roughly 60% of bachelor's degrees and nearly 60% of master's degrees. Men are more likely to drop out of high school, less likely to attend college, and less likely to graduate when they do. And this starts early. Boys fall behind in elementary and middle school. They're more likely to be labeled disruptive, diagnosed with behavioral disorders, suspended or expelled. Many educators quietly acknowledge that modern classrooms, long periods of sitting still, heavy verbal instruction, strict behavioral compliance, tend to align better with how girls develop. Meanwhile, there are massive initiatives aimed at supporting girls and women: scholarships, leadership pipelines, STEM programs, and institutional backing. When's the last time you saw a major national initiative called Men in Education? The silence is loud. And when young men drift academically, the consequences don't stop at school. Economic reality. The economic landscape has changed dramatically. Many traditionally male-dominated jobs in manufacturing, construction, and manual labor have been automated, outsourced, or reduced. At the same time, growth sectors like healthcare, education, and service industries tend to skew female. Men without college degrees, who already face educational challenges, are struggling the most. Inflation-adjusted wages for men without degrees have been stagnant or declining for decades. Yet, society still judges men heavily on their ability to provide. Dating expectations haven't caught up with economic reality. Many men still feel pressure to earn more, to be financially stable, to measure their worth by income. So imagine being a young man today working harder than your father did, earning less than your father did, and being told explicitly or implicitly that you're falling short. That gap between expectation and reality is crushing. And it leads us to the hardest part of this conversation: mental health. Men are struggling, and they're suffering quietly. Men die by suicide nearly 4 times the rate of women. They make up the majority of the homeless population. They're more likely to abuse substances, die from overdoses, and die younger overall. Yet men are far less likely to seek help, less likely to go to therapy, less likely to open up to friends, less likely to admit they're drowning. Why? Because despite all the progress we've made, men are still taught from a young age to tough it out, to suppress emotions, to see asking for help as weakness. And in a culture where masculinity itself is often labeled toxic, many men don't just feel unsupported, they feel blamed. So they withdraw. They stop engaging. They stop reaching out. They isolate. And isolation kills. Dating and relationships. Now let's talk about dating. Modern dating is hard for everyone, but it's particularly brutal for men. On dating apps, women swipe right on roughly 5 to 10% of profiles. Men swipe right about half. The top 10 to 20% of men receive the vast majority of matches. If you're an average guy, you're often invisible. Young men today are having less sex, fewer relationships, and are more likely to be single than any generation before them. Roughly 60% of young men are single, compared to about 30% of young women, partly because many women date older men. Now combine that with economic insecurity, identity confusion, and mental health struggles. Many men don't just feel rejected, they feel unnecessary. So they opt out, or they get pulled into unhealthy online spaces that offer simple answers to complex pain. When mainstream society doesn't offer guidance, people will find it somewhere else, even if it's destructive. The empathy gap. Here's something we rarely talk about: empathy. When women struggle, society mobilizes. We create movements, policies, and cultural conversations. That's good, that's progress. But when men struggle, academically, economically, mentally, the response is often silence or mockery. Bring up men's issues online and watch how fast the conversation turns hostile. The idea that men might be hurting is often treated as suspicious or offensive. Yes, historically, men held most of the power, but the man working 2 jobs, unable to pay rent, isolated and depressed, he doesn't feel powerful, he just feels lost. And when we refuse to acknowledge that pain, we don't just fail men, we fail families, we fail communities, we fail the next generation. So what do? First, we need healthier models of modern masculinity, models that allow men to be strong and vulnerable, successful without being defined by status or income. Second, we need real institutional support, education systems that work for boys, vocational paths that lead to dignity and stability, mental health resources designed in ways men will actually use. And finally, we need nuance. We can care about men's issues and women's issues at the same time. These aren't mutually exclusive. Helping men become healthier, more secure, and more grounded benefits everyone. So, is it tougher to be a man in 2026? In many ways, yes. The old roadmap is gone, the economy has shifted, mental health struggles are widespread, and there's often no socially acceptable space to talk about it. But there's also opportunity. Men today have more freedom than ever before to define their lives on their own terms, to be caregivers, artists, nurses, emotionally open and fully human. We're in the messy middle. The old rules don't work anymore, and the new ones aren't fully written yet. That's uncomfortable, but it's also growth. If you're a man watching this and you're struggling, you're not weak, you're not broken, and you're not alone. Your challenges are real, and it's okay to ask for help.
This is the Triumph Channel, for men, for life. If you felt this message, give this video a like, subscribe, and share it with a man who needs to hear it. We're building stronger men here, one video at a time. Stay strong, brother. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning.